The moon was a cold and silent place. There was no wind to move the gray dust. There was no sound except the heavy breathing of men inside suits. Ben Carter walked across the flat ground. His boots sank slightly into the soft soil. He was a Marine for the Human Coalition. He wore heavy armor that was painted white. It helped him hide in the pale landscape. Behind him, 4 other soldiers followed in a line. They held their rifles close to their chests. They were near the edge of known space. This area was called the neutral zone. No army was supposed to be here. But everyone knew that rules were often broken. Ben stopped moving. He lifted his left hand. The squad behind him stopped instantly. They stood still like statues. Ben listened to his radio. There was static, but also a strange pulse. His wrist computer beeped softly. It showed a red light blinking. There was energy coming from ahead. It was not natural. It came from a group of old ruins. The ruins were made of black stone. They looked like broken teeth sticking out of the ground. They were left by a species that died long ago. Now, they were just shadows in the dim light. "Move forward," Ben said. His voice was calm over the comms. He did not want to panic his team. They walked slowly between the stone walls. The shadows were long because the sun was low on the horizon. The cold seeped through the boots. Ben could feel it in his bones. Dan, the soldier behind him, tapped his shoulder. Dan pointed to a large open space between the walls. Ben looked through the gap. He saw them. His heart beat faster. They were not human. They were Krell. The Krell were a tall and thin alien species. They wore black armor that looked like insect shells. It was shiny and hard. Their faces were hidden behind dark masks. There were 6 of them standing in a circle. In the middle of the circle was a person. It was a woman. She was on her knees in the dust. Her hands were tied behind her back with wire. She wore thin clothes that offered no protection from the cold vacuum. She was shaking violently. She looked very weak. Ben felt a hot anger in his chest. The Krell were holding a prisoner. This was against the treaty. The treaty said no executions in the neutral zone. But the Krell did not care about treaties. They cared only about power. Ben watched the woman closely. She looked like she was about to die. Her skin was pale blue. She had marks on her face from fighting. Her head hung low. She did not look up at the soldiers. She seemed to have given up. The Krell leader turned around. He saw Ben and his squad. The leader was taller than the others. He held a long weapon that glowed with blue light. He pointed it at the woman's head. Then he turned the weapon toward Ben. "Do not move," the leader said. His voice came through a translator box. It sounded robotic and cold. "This is Krell business. Humans are not allowed here. You must leave now. If you stay, you will die." Ben did not move his feet. He kept his rifle ready. His finger hovered near the trigger. "This is a neutral zone," Ben said. His voice was steady and clear. "You cannot kill her here. We saw the energy signal. We have to report this to command." The Krell leader stepped closer to the woman. He pressed the weapon against her neck. She flinched. She made a small sound. It was a sound of pain and fear. "If you report this, there will be war," the Krell leader said. "You do not want war. Your commanders want peace. They will tell you to walk away. Just leave her. She is nothing. She is a traitor to her own kind. She deserves this end." Ben looked at the woman again. She lifted her head slowly. Her eyes were wide and dark. They were filled with fear. But it was not just fear of death. It was fear of being forgotten. It was the fear of dying alone. Ben knew what his commanders would say. They would say, "Follow the treaty." They would say, "Do not start a fight." They would say her life is not worth a war between species. Ben looked at his squad. Dan was waiting for orders. The other soldiers were quiet. They were looking at Ben. They knew what the rules were. But they also knew what was right. They were humans. They had a reputation to keep. The woman looked at Ben. She did not speak. She did not ask for help. She just looked at him. Ben saw something in her eyes. He saw hope. It was a small thing, but it was there. She believed he might help. She believed a human might be different than the Krell. The Krell leader laughed. It was a dry, harsh sound that crackled over the radio. You are weak, human. You will walk away. You are too scared to act. You are just like the others. Ben tightened his grip on his rifle. The metal felt cold in his gloves. He thought about the rules. He thought about the treaty. Then he thought about the woman. She was moments from death. The Krell finger was on the trigger. If Ben walked away, she would die. If Ben stayed, many might die. But if he did nothing, he would not be human. Humans protected those who could not protect themselves. That was what made them different. That was the human way. Ben took a deep breath. The air in his helmet tasted recycled and metallic. He looked at the Krell leader. His heart was pounding hard. I am not walking away, Ben said. The Krell leader stiffened. His mask turned toward Ben. What did you say? Ben raised his rifle. He aimed it at the leader. He did not shake. I said I am not walking away. Put the weapon down. Let her go. The Krell soldiers raised their weapons too. The air was thick with tension. Dan moved to cover the left side. The squad was ready. Ben knew this was a big mistake. He knew he could lose his rank. He could lose his life. But he did not care. He only cared about the woman on the ground. She was still alive. And as long as she was alive, he had a choice to make. He made his choice. The Krell leader did not wait. He pulled the trigger. A blue beam of light shot toward Ben. Ben dropped to the ground. The beam hit the stone wall behind him. Sparks flew everywhere. Dust filled the air. Ben did not hesitate. He squeezed his trigger. His rifle fired loud bursts. The sound was huge in the quiet zone. His squad joined him. Dan fired from the left. Another soldier fired from the right. The Krell were surprised. They expected humans to be weak. They expected humans to follow rules. They were wrong. The Krell leader shouted orders. His soldiers tried to find cover. They moved behind the black stones. Blue laser bolts zipped past Ben's head. They hit his armor. The warning lights on his suit flashed red. He was taking damage. But he kept moving. He crawled toward the woman. She was still on her knees. She covered her head with her hands. She was shaking. Ben reached her. He used his knife to cut the wire on her wrists. Her skin was cold like ice. Get up, Ben said. You have to move. She looked at him. Her eyes were wide. She nodded weakly. She tried to stand, but her legs failed. Ben grabbed her arm. He pulled her up. He put her arm over his shoulder. She was light. Too light. She had not eaten in days. Dan moved to cover them. Dan fired his rifle steadily. He kept the Krell heads down. Go, Dan shouted. I will hold them. Ben started to run. He carried the woman toward the dropship. It was parked behind a ridge. The engines were warm. Ben's radio crackled. It was Captain Moore. His voice was angry. Carter, what are you doing? Stand down immediately. That is an order. Ben did not stop running. His boots kicked up gray dust. His breath was heavy. I cannot do that, sir. Ben said. She is going to die. Moore shouted over the radio. You are starting a war. Do you understand me? Pull back now. Ben looked at the woman. Her head rested on his shoulder. She was closing her eyes. If he stopped, she would die. If he stopped, the Krell would take her back. I understand, Ben said. But I am not leaving her. There was silence on the radio. Then Moore spoke again. His voice was lower. If you bring that ship back, you will be arrested. Ben knew this was true. He knew his career might be over. He knew he could go to prison. But he did not care. He reached the dropship ramp. Dan ran in behind them. The last Krell soldier fired a shot. It hit Dan's leg. Dan fell but got up quickly. He limped into the ship. Ben laid the woman on the floor. The medics on board rushed to her. Close the ramp, Ben ordered. The pilot did not ask questions. The ramp closed with a hiss. The engines roared. The ship lifted off the ground. Ben looked out the window. The Krell were small dots below them. They were not following. They were calling for help. Ben sat down on the metal floor. His armor was scratched. His body was tired. Dan sat next to him. He was holding his leg. It was bleeding but not bad. "You did a crazy thing," Dan said. Ben looked at his hands. They were shaking slightly. "I know," Ben said. The flight back to the frigate was quiet. No one spoke. The woman was wrapped in thermal blankets. The medics worked on her silently. They gave her fluids. They checked her heart. She was stable for now. Ben watched them. He thought about Captain Moore. He thought about the court-martial. He thought about the Krell fleet. They would not forget this. Humans were supposed to be peaceful traders. Now they were warriors. Ben had changed something today. He had drawn a line in the dust. The ship landed on the large human frigate. The bay doors opened. Military police were waiting. They held weapons. They looked serious. Captain Moore stood behind them. He looked disappointed. He did not look angry anymore. He looked tired. Ben walked down the ramp. He took off his helmet. He faced the captain. The police moved to grab Ben. Moore held up his hand. "Stop," Moore said. "Let me talk to him first." The police waited. Moore walked to Ben. "You broke the treaty," Moore said. "Yes," Ben said. "You disobeyed a direct order." "Yes," Ben said. Moore looked at the woman being carried off the ship. She was alive. "Because of you," Moore said. "Yes," Ben said. Moore sighed. "Take him to the brig. Lock him up. Wait for further orders." Ben nodded. He did not fight. He let them take his rifle. He let them put hands on him. He walked with them toward the cells. He looked back one last time. The woman was safe. That was all that mattered. The door closed behind him. It was dark inside. But Ben did not feel afraid. He felt calm. He had done the right thing. Now he would wait for the price. The cell was small and cold. The walls were made of gray metal. There was no window to see outside. Ben Carter sat on the hard bench. He leaned forward and rested his elbows on his knees. His head was in his hands. He had been there for many hours. The ship hummed around him. It was a deep sound that he could feel in the floor. He knew the crew was moving around. He knew they were talking about him. He was the Marine who broke the rules. He was the man who might start a war. Time moved slowly in the dark. Ben thought about the woman. He did not know her name yet. He only knew she was alive. He hoped the doctors could help her. She was so weak when he found her. The Krell wanted her dead. That meant she was important. Ben closed his eyes. He thought about his family back on Earth. He thought about what would happen if the Krell attacked. Thousands could die. All because he did not walk away. But he could not walk away. He knew that if he did it again, he would make the same choice. The door to the cell opened. It slid to the side with a hiss. Captain Moore walked in. He wore his uniform neatly. His face looked tired. There were lines around his eyes that were not there before. He stood in front of Ben. He did not sit down. 2 guards stood behind him with rifles. They watched Ben closely. Ben stood up. He stood at attention. He did not speak until Moore spoke. "At ease," Moore said. His voice was quiet. Ben relaxed his shoulders. Moore looked around the small room. "It is bad out there," Moore said. "The Krell fleet has arrived. They are at the edge of the system. They are demanding we give them the prisoner. They say she is stolen property. They say we broke the treaty." Ben looked at the floor. "I know, sir." Moore stepped closer. "Do you know what she is?" Ben shook his head. "No, sir. I just saw them trying to kill her." Moore sighed. He handed Ben a data pad. Ben took it. The screen showed medical reports. There were scans of the woman's body. There were notes from the doctors. "She is not just a prisoner," Moore said. Her name is Leah. She is a leader from a small species. The Krell want to wipe out her people. They want to take their land. Leah has proof. She has data inside her mind. It is encrypted. Only she can unlock it. It shows the Krell plans for genocide. Ben looked up. His eyes were wide. If we give her back, they will kill her. Yes, Moore said. And they will destroy the proof. Then they will kill her people. No one will know the truth. Ben felt angry. His hands tightened on the datapad. Then we cannot give her back. Moore looked at the guards. He waved them away. The guards stepped out. The door closed. Now they were alone. Moore leaned against the wall. High Command wants to give her back, Moore said. They want peace. They say one life is not worth a war. They say you are a rogue element. They say you acted alone. Ben felt a cold knot in his stomach. They want to blame me. Yes, Moore said. If we hand her over, you will go to prison. But the war might be stopped. If we keep her, the Krell will attack. Many humans will die. Ben thought about the numbers. He thought about the lives. But he thought about Leah too. She looked at him with hope. She trusted him. If we give her back, Ben said, we are no better than the Krell. We say we are good people. We say we protect the weak. If we trade her for peace, that is a lie. Moore did not answer right away. He looked at Ben for a long time. You understand the risk? Moore asked. If we keep her, you and I could court-martial. The ship could be lost. I understand, Ben said. But I cannot let them kill her. Moore pushed off the wall. He walked to the door. I have to go to the bridge. The Krell are giving us 1 hour. Then they will open fire. Moore stopped with his hand on the panel. Leah asked for you. Ben looked up. She did. Yes. She woke up an hour ago. She is weak, but she is awake. She said she only wants to talk to you. She said you are the only one she trusts. Moore opened the door. The guards were waiting. Take him to the medical bay, Moore said. The guards looked confused. Sir. Moore turned back. You heard me. Take him to see her. But keep him cuffed. If she tries to run, you stop them both. Ben nodded. Thank you, sir. Moore did not smile. Do not thank me yet. This does not mean I agree. It just means I need to know what she says. Maybe she can give us a way out. Ben walked out of the cell. The hallway was bright compared to the darkroom. He walked between the guards. His hands were cuffed behind his back. He thought about what Moore said. 1 hour. That was not much time. The Krell ships were waiting. They had big guns. The human frigate was strong, but not that strong. If they fought, many would die. But if they did not fight, humanity would lose its honor. Ben looked at the floor as he walked. He thought about Leah. She was alone in a strange ship. She was scared. She asked for him. That meant something. It meant he was not just a soldier. He was a symbol. Humans were known for many things. Some said they were loud. Some said they were reckless. But Ben wanted them to be known for kindness. He wanted them to be known for saving lives. They reached the medical bay. The doors opened. The air smelled like medicine. Leah was lying on a bed. She looked better than before. Her skin was not so pale. Tubes were connected to her arm. She saw Ben. Her eyes lit up. She tried to sit up. The doctor told her to rest. She shook her head. She pointed at Ben. The guards uncuffed Ben. He walked to her bed. He stood close. She reached out her hand. Ben took it. Her hand was warm now. You came, she said. Her voice was soft. I said I would not leave you, Ben said. She smiled weakly. The Krell will come for me. Yes, Ben said. They will kill us all to get me. I know, Ben said. Leah squeezed his hand. Do not let them take me. Ben looked into her eyes. He knew what he had to do. He would not let them take her. Not today. Not ever. Ben walked out of the medical bay. The guards did not stop him. They looked at each other with worry. They knew what was happening outside the ship. The clock on the wall ticked down slowly. 30 minutes left. The Krell wanted Lianao. High Command had sent the final order to Captain Moore. Transfer the prisoner to the Krell shuttle. Do not resist. Ben read the message on his wrist computer. The words were clear. He stopped in the cold hallway. He looked at the guards who were supposed to watch him. I cannot let this happen, Ben said. His voice was low but firm. The guards did not move their weapons. They looked at the floor. We have orders, one guard said. His voice shook slightly. Ben nodded. I know. But I have a choice. And so do you. Ben walked to the armory. He needed his squad. Dan was there. Dan was cleaning his rifle. He looked up when Ben entered. Dan did not look surprised. He had heard the news over the radio. I heard they are giving her back, Dan said. He put down the cloth. Yes, Ben said. They are trading her for peace. Dan stood up. He looked at the other soldiers in the room. There were 6 of them. His team. They were tired. Their armor was scratched from the moon. They were scared. But they were human. We are not giving her back, Ben said. If we do that, we are killers. We are no better than the Krell. The soldiers looked at Ben. They remembered the woman on the moon. They remembered her fear. They remembered how she looked at Ben. Dan stood up fully. He picked up his rifle. He checked the power cell. Where do we go? Ben pointed to the map on the wall. The hangar bay. The Krell shuttle will land there. We will block the door. Dan nodded. He looked at the others. Are you with us? The soldiers stood up one by one. They checked their weapons. They did not speak. They just followed Ben. They walked through the ship. Other crew members saw them. They did not stop them. Some nodded. Some looked away. Everyone knew this was wrong. Everyone knew the woman did not deserve to die. The ship felt heavy with tension. The lights seemed dimmer. The hum of the engine sounded louder. They reached the hangar bay. It was a large room with a high ceiling. The floor was marked with yellow lines. The big doors were closed tight. Ben stood in the middle of the room. His squad formed a line behind him. They waited. The alarm sounded. It was a loud siren. The bay doors began to open. Cold air rushed in from space. A small Krell shuttle flew inside. It was black and sharp. It looked like a knife. It landed smoothly on the pad. The engines stopped with a whine. The silence returned. It was heavier than before. The ramp on the shuttle lowered slowly. Krell soldiers walked out. They wore their black armor. It shined under the bay lights. They held their weapons ready. There were 10 of them. They saw Ben and his squad. The Krell leader stepped forward. He was the same one from the moon. His mask hid his face. But Ben could feel the anger. Move aside, the Krell leader said. His voice was robotic. We are here for the prisoner. Ben did not move. His feet felt heavy on the floor. He planted them firm. No, Ben said. The Krell leader tilted his head. You are one human. We are many. We have ships outside. We will destroy this vessel. Ben looked at the shuttle. He looked at the soldiers behind him. If you want her, you have to go through us, Ben said. His voice was loud in the big room. It echoed off the walls. The Krell leader raised his weapon. The blue light glowed. You are foolish. You will die for nothing. Ben shook his head. Not for nothing. For her. For us. For what we are. The Krell soldiers raised their weapons too. Dan and the squad aimed their rifles. The air was thick. No one fired. They just waited. Someone had to make the first move. The tension was like a wire ready to snap. Ben did not blink. He kept his eyes on the leader. High above them, on the bridge, Captain Moore watched the screen. He saw the standoff. His hands were on the console. His officers waited for his command. Fire on the Krell, one officer said. Or let them take her. Moore looked at the timer. 10 seconds left until the Krell promised to attack the ship. Moore thought about his career. He thought about the rules. Then he thought about Ben. Ben was down there risking everything. Ben was willing to die for a stranger. Moore looked at his crew. They were watching him. They wanted to know what kind of captain he was. They wanted to know if humans were worth following. Moore took a deep breath. He pressed the button for the ship-wide comms. "All weapons, target the Krell shuttle," Moore said. His voice was steady. "Do not fire unless they shoot first. But lock them down." The officers moved quickly. The lights on the console turned green. The weapons were ready. Red dots appeared on the Krell shuttle on the screen. Moore looked at the screen again. Ben was still standing there. He did not flinch. Moore knew this was mutiny. He knew High Command would be angry. He could lose his rank. But he also knew Ben was right. Humanity could not be a species that traded lives for safety. That was not the human way. Moore sat back in his chair. He watched the screen. He waited. The Krell leader looked up. He knew the weapons were locked on him. He looked back at Ben. The standoff was complete. No one moved. The fate of the woman hung in the balance. The fate of the ship hung in the balance. Ben stood firm. He was the line. And he would not cross it. The silence in the hangar bay was heavy. It felt like the air itself was holding its breath. The Krell leader stood at the bottom of the shuttle ramp. His weapon was raised. Ben Carter stood opposite him. His rifle was also raised. Behind Ben, his squad waited. Behind the Krell, their soldiers waited. Above them, the human frigate had locked weapons on the shuttle. Everyone knew the situation. If anyone fired, everyone would die. The Krell leader looked at Ben. Then he looked up at the ceiling. He knew the sensors were on him. He knew the humans were not bluffing. The red lights on his armor warned him that he was targeted. The human guns were ready to fire. "You are making a mistake," the Krell leader said. His voice was cold and robotic. "This ship will be destroyed." Ben did not lower his weapon. His hands were steady. "Maybe," Ben said. "But you will not leave here. If we die, you die with us." The Krell leader paused. He calculated the odds. He looked at his own soldiers. They were nervous. They had never seen humans act like this. Humans were supposed to be traitors. They were supposed to be weak. But these humans stood like stones. They were willing to die for one prisoner. The Krell leader lowered his weapon slowly. He signaled his team. "This is not over," he said. Ben kept his aim steady. "For us, it is over. You leave now." The Krell soldiers backed up into the shuttle. The ramp began to close with a hydraulic hiss. The engines whined loudly. The shuttle lifted off. It flew out of the hangar bay. The big doors closed behind it. The alarm stopped ringing. The silence returned. But now it was different. It was not tense. It was relief. Ben lowered his rifle. His arms were tired. His muscles ached from the tension. Dan let out a long breath. The other soldiers relaxed their shoulders. They had won. But Ben knew there would be consequences. He had disobeyed orders. He had pointed a gun at allies of command. He expected to be arrested again. He expected to go to prison for a long time. He looked at his hands. They were shaking slightly now that the danger was gone. Captain Moore walked into the hangar. He did not look angry. He looked proud. He walked up to Ben. The crew behind him was quiet. They watched the two men. Moore stopped in front of Ben. "You caused a lot of trouble," Moore said. Ben nodded. "I know, sir." Moore looked around at the squad. "You all did." Dan stepped forward. "We followed orders, sir." Moore smiled slightly. "Yes. You followed the right orders." Moore turned to Ben. "High Command saw the data. Leah sent the proof to the Galactic Council. The Krell plans are public now. Every species knows what they planned. The Krell fleet is withdrawing. They cannot attack without looking like monsters. The galaxy is watching." Ben felt a weight lift off his shoulders. Leah was safe. Her people would be safe. "What about us?" Ben asked. Moore sighed. "You are not going to prison. But you are not getting a promotion either. You will stay on this ship. You will follow orders from now on. Ben smiled. Yes, sir. Moore extended his hand. Ben shook it. Good work, soldier. Moore walked away. The crew began to move again. The ship returned to normal operations. But something had changed. The humans had shown their true nature. They were not just survivors. They were protectors. The news spread quickly through the ship. Everyone knew what Ben had done. The story would travel faster than the ship. Ben went to the medical bay. Lia was sitting up in bed. She looked stronger. Her skin had color. She saw Ben and smiled. You stayed, she said. Ben sat in the chair next to her. I told you I would. Lia looked at her hands. My people will live because of you. Ben shook his head. No. They will live because you were brave. I just helped. Lia looked at him. There are many species in the galaxy. Most care only for themselves. Humans are different. You care for strangers. Ben looked out the window. Space was dark and vast. Stars twinkled in the distance. We try to be better, Ben said. Sometimes we fail. But we try. Lia reached out and took his hand. The galaxy will know now. They will know humans keep their promises. Ben nodded. He hoped she was right. He thought about the Krell leader. He would remember this day. He would remember that humans did not break easily. Ben stood up. I have to go. Duty calls. Lia nodded. Go. Be safe. Ben walked out of the medical bay. He walked down the long hallway. The lights were bright. The floor was clean. He passed other crew members. They nodded at him. They treated him with respect. He was just a Marine. But today, he was something more. He was a symbol. The ship jumped to warp speed. They were going home. Ben looked at the stars streaking by. He thought about the future. There would be more conflicts. There would be more hard choices. But he knew what he would do. He would choose to help. He would choose to save. That was the human way. It was not about being the strongest. It was about being the best. Ben smiled to himself.